For a transcript of this episode, training plans, and more, visit marathonsfortherestofus.com. Hey, I'm Coach Carl. Today I want to talk to you about how to find the best marathon training shoes for you. And I think the key phrase is for you, right? We don't want to put a ton of stock into what your friends or your training partners or your coaches or whoever recommends, because the shoe fitting process is going to be very individual, and what works for you may not work for somebody else, and vice versa. So we need to make sure that we keep some key factors in mind, but one of those factors is not going to be what your friends are wearing or what advertisement you saw in the magazine this month. The first factor that we want to look at is the function of the shoe. And you hear terms a lot like neutral shoes and stability shoes, motion control shoes, things like that. That describes the function of the shoe and how it's supposed to work with your foot. Now, ideally, you want the shoe to complement what the foot is doing naturally rather than trying to overcorrect anything. And so what I mean by complement is maybe you just need some extra cushioning and shock absorption. Maybe you do need a little bit of support to make sure that your foot isn't rolling too far to the inside. Or maybe you need a little support to make sure that you're not staying too far on the lateral edge of your foot. These things can all be complemented by the correct shoe with the correct function, but there isn't a one-to-one correlation between your foot function, the function of the shoe, and injury prevention. So we're going to need to take some other factors into account as well to make sure that we get the right shoe. It's not as simple as saying, oh, I overpronate, I need a stability shoe. The second factor that we want to look at is the fit of the shoe and how your foot fits in the shoe. There's a gentleman named Gregory Sheets who's an Atlanta institution. He works at Phidippides here in Atlanta, and he has this great phrase saying that the shoe needs to frame the foot. And I think that's the perfect way to think about it, because what you're really saying is that you don't want any part of your foot overhanging the shoe. You want it all on a nice base of support with the shoe. But at the same time, you don't want the shoe so loose that your foot's sliding around. You don't want the arch digging in, but you also want to make sure that you feel the arch. You don't want a gap in there. And so this idea of the shoe framing the foot, I think, is a great way to think about it. You don't want to be constricted, but you want to be supported throughout. Now, what feels supported and what feels constricting can vary widely based on personal preference. But if you're going to be training for a marathon, one piece of advice that I would really encourage you to take into account is to leave a thumb's width, the width of your thumb, between the end of your toes and the end of the shoes. And that will allow space for your foot to swell during your longer long runs and not hit the end of the shoe, not cause blisters, not have black toenails, those sorts of things. Now, I know if you have a soccer background, I'm probably not going to talk you into it, and that's fine. But for most people, I think that thumb's width is a great indication that you have the room necessary for your foot to swell, but you're still going to have a nice supportive fit in the rest of the shoe. Now, the third factor that we want to look at is comfort. And comfort is arguably the most important factor of these three. Now, there's been studies that have shown that independent of foot function and the function of the shoe, that how comfortable a shoe is on your foot is as good a predictor of whether you're going to get injured while running as anything else. So you want to make sure that above all else, the shoe feels comfortable to you. You're going to be spending a lot of time in it. You're going to be logging a lot of miles in these shoes. If they don't feel comfortable in the store, don't count on them breaking in. The odds that they will are pretty small, and the odds you're going to regret the purchase are much higher. Now, comfort encompasses a lot of different factors. There's things like cushioning, weight, there's flexibility, there's how the materials that they use for the upper feel on your foot, there's where the shoe laces and how that feels on your foot, how snug it is in the heel, all of these sorts of things. What is important to you should be what takes priority here, right? There's not a set hierarchy of cushioning is most important, and then weight, and then flexibility. You want to think about it in a big picture term of, when I put this shoe on, does it feel comfortable to me? Am I excited to go run? Does this feel like something that I'm not going to notice when I'm out there? I think that's a great way to tell the shoe is comfortable, is you don't even feel like you have it on. So focusing on those three factors, the function, the fit, and the comfort, and probably not in that order. Remember, comfort is probably the most important. I think will go a long way towards helping you find the best shoe for you for marathon training. Now, I do have a few other shoe-related things that I want to address. The first is heel drop. This is a term that you've heard a lot in the last decade or so as shoes have gone from a traditional heel drop of, say, 10 to 12 millimeters down to 8, 4, even 0 in some cases. Now, for some people, those lower heel heights feel really comfortable, they feel really natural, and they may even help them reduce some aches and pains that they've had that have been caused by the higher heel height. However, anytime you're shifting, whether it's from a high heel drop to a low or vice versa, there's the risk of your body not liking it. There's a risk of injury. There's a risk of discomfort and pain and all of that. So I would be very cautious about making a big change in the heel drop of your shoes if you're comfortable and having success either with a traditional or with a lower heel drop. Stick with what works, stick with what you know. A second shoe issue that I think is important to understand is that a new model of a shoe may be wildly different from the one that you wear. Just because it has the same name doesn't mean that the shoe companies didn't change significant parts of that shoe. So it can be dangerous to say, I'm going to go from this model and just order the new one without even trying it on. I think it's really important to go to a store, to try the new model on, make sure it still feels good, and try some other shoes along with it. I think it's important that you see if there's something new that's come out that feels better and feels more comfortable to you. Don't stick with a model year after year after year blindly because the shoe companies aren't. They're changing it up, and I think that's a perfect opportunity for you to think about whether you should change it up as well. The third thing that I want to mention is that new running shoes wear out fast. They wear out faster than you think, and they wear out faster than old running shoes did. The materials that they're using now are lighter weight, they're softer, they're more flexible, all of which contributes to the comfort of the shoe. But it doesn't contribute to the durability of the shoe. I think for most people, 250 to 300 miles is about all you can expect to get out of a pair of shoes, and that may sound like a lot, but for marathon training, you're probably doing between 25, 30 miles a week, so that's about 2.5 months that you can expect to get out of the shoes before it starts to lose its cushioning, before it starts to lose its shock absorbing properties. And if you're running in worn out shoes and you're doing marathon training, that's just asking for an injury at that point. So stay on top of how many miles you have. If you feel any new aches or pains, that's a great indication that your shoes are worn out and you need a new pair. But that 250 to 300 miles, I think, is pretty reasonable these days for most running shoes. And finally, I just want to end by saying that running specialty stores are your best friend. They're a great resource. They're a great source of knowledge. They're a great support of the running community in most cases. You may be able to find a shoe $5 or $10 cheaper online than you can at your local running store, but it's well worth it to spend that extra $5 or $10. Make the connection with your local running store, meet the people there, get their advice, get their input, get their expertise, not only in the shoe selection, but about running in general, about places to run, about training, about groups. They live and breathe this, and they're a great resource, and it would be a shame to see them disappear. So please support your local running store and let them help you find the best running shoes and the best marathon shoes for you. I hope that information is helpful. If you have suggestions for future episodes, please leave them in the comments section below and let me know what you think of this episode as well. Thank you so much for watching. We'll talk to you next week.